Last week, we started a brand new series called Doing the Work. And we're doing the work, right? We're out here, we're trying to be more loving. We're trying to be kinder, more compassionate, right? We're hoping and learning and growing and working on being less reactive. Maybe we're learning the difference between the things we can control and the things we can't. And so the invitation of this series really is going to be to recognize that even when the world feels as though it is going haywire, I know that I can take responsibility for me, if nothing else. And so today, we're going to take this conversation a step further than we took it last week. See, last week, we really asked the question, who can I be responsible for? Whose work can I do? I can't do someone else's work. I can't control the outcome of events in the world per se, but I can do my work. And so with that answered, we're going to kind of move on today and really ask, where is this work happening? And what I really want to propose today is that this work happens in the body, in your body, in my body. Today, the invitation is this. If we're going to do the work, then part of that means becoming aware of our bodies in a new way. How many of us have ever had this thought that, everything that I've ever experienced, my entire life and all my experiences have happened from within this body, right? You might have had experiences of relationship and connection with others, but it was still something that happened and you experienced it from within your senses, within your body. Maybe you've had experiences that you would consider to be out of body, and yet your experience of it was still localized in your body. It's a very fascinating thing to think about. You might say, but Jake, aren't you always spouting that Teilhard de Chardin quote that says, we're not human beings having a spiritual experience, we're spiritual beings having a human experience. How do you square that up? Well, I find that to be a beautiful frame and beautiful poetic language. But what we do know is that our awareness is here in our bodies. Our bodies are the mechanism through which all of our experiences take place. I'm not saying that you are only a body and nothing more, but we recognize how central our body is to this experience of life and all of the experiences that come. So let's just take a moment. Let's marvel at the human body. This body that actually really comes from, is built on, and contains within it billions of years of intelligence. So much intelligence that there are processes going on in your body to keep you alive that are so numinous that it would boggle the mind to even try to do the math. That if you think about all your cells, all the things that are happening simultaneously like an orchestra to keep you alive, to keep you healthy. It's not on the scale of millions of things happening simultaneously in orchestration, nor on the scale of billions or even trillions, that conservative estimates would say that there are quadrillions of processes happening in your body simultaneously at any given moment. It's just too large to think about. But we do have the miracle of things like our senses. Think about how miraculous our senses are to be able to see each other, hear each other in this moment, right? Maybe smell each other a little bit. I don't know. I don't know where you're sitting. We have things like our cognition, right? Our consciousness is such a mystery, but we understand that our ability to think arises as a result of the amazing architecture of the body. It's incredible. In the theme of the day, think about motherhood, the miracle, the wonder of motherhood, how one body can have the innate intelligence of making another. It is just absolutely incredible, right? Suffice to say, our bodies are miracles. Your body is a wonderland, said John Mayer. I think he meant it in a slightly different way, but you get the feeling. if we're going to look at the work, right? If we're going to look at our problems and our challenges and the things that we're working on, and we're not going to think about the body, right? If we're only going to think about the mind and concepts and logic and rationality, then I think we'll be missing out on so much of what's actually there, of what actually could lead to our healing. For as Resmaa Menakem says, a therapist and trauma specialist, he says healing happens in the body, not in the thinking mind. Healing happens in the body, not in the thinking mind. See, last week, we talked about those moments where your work, the things you're working on, come up, right? Like a moment that might bring out some anxiety. Something happens and you feel anger or a difficult moment and all of a sudden you want to kind of distance yourself from the feelings. And these are just a normal Tuesday, at least for me. But then we have those things, that work that is maybe a lot more serious, deep grief and trauma, a diagnosis, things that it takes everything that we have to work on and work through. But the idea, more or less, is the same in that there is an outside factor. Something happens externally first, right? Like someone cuts you off in traffic, your flight is delayed, your boss chews you out. There is an external cause for something. But there is also the internal reality, the experience of that thing that is happening in your body, in your nervous system. And that is where things are far more mysterious and far more interesting, because there's a lot going on there that we don't fully understand or see. But what we can at least guess at is that when things occur in the external world that bring up an emotional reaction, the emotions and feelings are not just a response to what's happening in the moment, but there is also wounds and other triggers and things from the past that come to the surface, that live there from the past, that live inside of the body. How many of us have ever had a reaction to something that was a little disproportionate to what was going on in the moment? You're like, oh, I did not realize all of that was there. Sometimes Olivia will be like, can you do the dishes? And all of a sudden, like 32 years of wanting to be a good boy come, and I'm just like, throw him for a loop. That person didn't call you back. And your reaction was a bit more than simply playing phone tag, right? And so we understand the past is actually present with us, and it's present in our bodies. I know maybe some of you have read this book. A lot of you have heard this book title, so I'll let you finish the sentence. The body keeps score, right? It's a popular book written by Bessel Kolk. I love this quote from him. He says, you can be fully in charge of your life only if you acknowledge the reality of your body and the reality that your body is holding more than we are aware of in our normal everyday life. But maybe it is in pursuit of living fully that we can begin that work of acknowledging the reality of all that is there, because this body contains emotions and fears and memories and triggers and desires that color our lives at any given moment. Think about this very moment that we're sharing together. And while we're all in this space and we're joining together with a common heart and a common openness, we all are having a different experience in our own bodies. We all have unique histories, unique lives, and everything for us is going to be unique. And it is the awareness of that and the awareness of what is happening for me and your awareness of what is happening for you that creates the possibility of a fuller life. Because we all have things under the surface that no one would see simply by looking at us. Beliefs about ourselves, maybe unconscious beliefs, patterns, memories. And what if these things actually have a lot more power in our lives than we often realize. I'll give you an example. You might be watching the news, or you might be on the internet scrolling, and you might be reading the news, and you might see a story or something that comes up that brings up in you grief and fear, or maybe even anger. Is that something that anyone has felt recently? I don't know. Maybe I'm just out on a limb here, right? But we understand that experience, and all of those emotions and feelings would make complete sense, totally valid. And on top of it, when you feel that grief, you may also be feeling reserves from a well of ungrieved grief in your body, right? Maybe that fear comes along with it, some unfelt fear. Maybe that anger brings with it some unexpressed anger. Maybe some things from our past, maybe things that we would not even expect. But when we are completely unaware of all that we hold emotionally, we may end up being more reactive to things. And this is why. So perhaps when our work comes up, right? When the thing happens and you feel it and you know it and you know, oh, okay, this is an opportunity as hard as it is. While often our tendency might be to try to push it out of the way, right? Have another cup of coffee, have another drink, keep on scrolling, hoping for a dopamine hit that kind of erases what I'm currently feeling. But really all you're doing is you're adding that feeling that you're not willing to feel to a pile of unfelt emotion that really does not go anywhere. The body holds it. The body keeps the score. So what if the opportunity was to feel it fully? Something as simple as, in a moment, you're feeling challenged, you're feeling difficult, you're feeling something that, this is hard. And you just take a moment, you put your hand on your heart, you stop, you pause, you breathe, and you just give that feeling 90 seconds without judging it, without needing to understand it. Just allow it to be felt. I understand, friends, that this work sounds kind of scary. I totally get that. To feel the full weight of our emotion. See, if you're like me, maybe you had moments in your childhood where you felt a lot of emotion. You felt fear. You felt sadness. You know, in my childhood, I had stretches of time, seasons of life where relationships and dynamics were not as they should have been. And so there was a lot of fear. There was a lot of sadness. And I think that on some subconscious level, even as a child, I instinctually felt that if I actually faced the reality of what was happening and I fully took on the emotion of all that was there for me, I almost was afraid that it would destroy me, that I couldn't handle it. And so almost as an act of self-protection and instinct, my body started to distance myself from that experience. I used my brain to explain and understand and rationalize what was happening in my life instead of feeling it. And it felt safe because instead of living in my body, I began to live in my brain. Now I recognize now that my body was doing the best it could with the tools it had at the time to protect itself and to feel safe. But it also means that as an adult, something that I've been working through is this reality that oftentimes my head and my heart feel like they are 1,000 miles apart. So naturally, it's landed me in, some therapist office, and I would have these experiences being with a therapist. This has happened multiple times where a therapist might ask me, "What are you feeling?" Right? Because so often we go like, "How are you feeling?" "Oh, I'm fine." But what are you feeling is an interesting question. It's a pointed question. What is it that you're actually feeling? What is it like to be you in this moment? And so a therapist might ask me, "What are you feeling?" And I would probably say something like, "Okay, what am I feeling? I'm feeling like this situation sucks." And they'd be like, "Well, that's not really a feeling per se. Can you actually go into your body and really try to feel?" Right? And I'd like, "Okay, I'm going to feel. Okay, what am I feeling? All right, I'm feeling like this person let me down." Okay? And they're like, "Again, not a feeling, not a feeling. We're getting closer maybe, but not a feeling." Really just sit with it, breathe. and really feel what it's like to be in your body. Just notice sensation. And at that moment, I might finally relax, breathe, and say something like, wow, I feel a tightness in my chest, and there's a sadness there. Or I feel butterflies in my stomach. There's some anxiety there. And then they would say, good job. That's the kind of thing we're looking for. And I would say, this is the weirdest game I've ever played. But it's given me some tools, because now when I feel sadness, when I feel fear, and I know my instinct is often to avoid it, to go into my mind, which I still quite often do, unfortunately, but I also have this invitation. I also have this opportunity that I sometimes take, and that opportunity is to recognize I am safe in this moment. I can let my body know we're safe, and I can just feel what's coming up. I can feel the sadness that resembles sadness I might have felt in childhood. I can feel the fear that might have resembled the fear that was felt in childhood. And maybe in this moment, as I create the space to feel it, maybe what is present for me and what is past come together, and I can start to release ever so slowly. Because friends, we know that the past is not past, but it is here with us. Now, some of you, at this point, you might be like, thanks, Jake, I'm out. Okay, I don't know if I can keep going with you. You ever watch Shark Tank? They're like, and for that reason, I'm out. So that might be you. And I would totally understand. We're talking about feeling our feelings, not even just what we're feeling now, but all of the feelings we haven't felt in decades. It's hard work, right? And so it can be uncomfortable. And so I want to speak to the person out there who might say, Jake, I can't sit and just feel my feelings all the time, because I also need to live from my logical brain. Our logical brain has done a lot, right? Our logical brain, we built cities from our logical brain. We invented Nutella with our logical brains. Are you saying that you want to get rid of Nutella, Jake? No. But I will say that there is some interesting science that explores this dynamic. And we can start with neuroscientist Antonio Damasio, who says, we are not thinking machines that feel, rather, we are feeling machines that think. An illustrative analogy, an abstract language to really just say, it is not that we are thinking rational brains that have a capacity for emotion and feeling. It is that we are actually feeling and instinctual and emotional brains and bodies and selves with a capacity to think. And it's a very important distinction. Science tells us that our feeling brain is far, far older than our thinking brain. And so our feeling brain is actually running the show, but our thinking brain, our rational mind, does what it does best. It thinks, and it convinces itself that it's in charge, which means that we tend to live life from a place of emotion and feeling and instinct, and then convincing ourselves that it was actually logic and rationality. We make emotional decisions and then justify them with logic. Some of you are like, I know, I'm in debt because of this, right? You're like, I need that car. It's going to change my life. If I can just get that sixth guitar, everything's going to fall into place, right? Some of you have said, like, I can change him. And that was an emotional decision, right, with the logic. Okay, I don't know, maybe it hit too close to home for some people. Anyway, anyone been like, I'm going to cut bangs? And you're like, that's an emotional decision, but I can find a reason for it, right? Anyway, okay. I had like 5 others, but I'm just going to stop there. There's an author named Jonathan Haidt who wrote a book called The Happiness Hypothesis. And in this, he gives this wonderful illustration, this analogy called the elephant and the rider. Anyone out here ridden an elephant before? Okay, we have 4 in this service, 4 in last service. It was a lot more than I was expecting. So those of you who have ridden an elephant, you know, and those of you who hadn't, you can probably guess that there is half of this equation. One character thinks it's in charge, and one character is actually in charge. Am I right? What Haidt says is that the rider is like the thinking, the rational brain, and the elephant is like the emotional feeling brain or feeling self. And what this means is that the rider is pointing out, hey, we should go this way, we should go that way. And maybe the elephant follows its lead from time to time. But believe you me, the elephant can overpower the rider at any moment, and often does, right? Because that's where the power lies, in the emotion, in the feeling, in the instinct, right? And so it can overpower the rider. And what might the rider do? The rider might say, oh, well, I meant to do that, right? That was where we were going anyway, right? Some of you have made a career off of, I meant to do that, right? So you understand. But you might be looking at this and you might be saying, Jake, this is a problem. This is a really big problem that you're presenting to us, because you're basically saying that, well, we're just doomed to be dragged around by the chaos of our emotions. And I can understand why you might have that fear. Maybe you're like me and you grew up with a religion or a framework that told you that emotions are bad, that the body is evil or wrong. And so maybe, like me, you kind of ended up internalizing this duality, this programming that the body is something to be overcome. And what I hope we've been doing today, and what I hope to really close out with, is to reframe that our emotions, our bodies, our full selves are sacred and are wise. That the elephant is actually deeply intelligent. Your body, and the feeling part of your body in particular, is the result of billions of years of survival, ingenuity, and creativity in ways that the writer couldn't even possibly begin to understand. This is where we start to get into the realm of faith and trust, when we outmax our understanding. Because haven't you found that your body doesn't lie? Right? Like you tense when you don't feel safe, when you don't trust, right? You relax when you feel comfortable, when you feel that you can really trust someone or a situation. Your nervous system is more honest than really any other part of you, because the mind lies all the time, right? The mind's like, that hat looks great on you. You know, the mind's like, you can fix your roof by yourself. You don't need to hire anyone. This is why we say trust your gut. Your gut quite literally has 500 million neurons in it. It's called the enteric nervous system. It's its own thinking entity. It's its own consciousness. And so perhaps, friends, doing the work is not simply figuring out from a place of the mind how to better ourselves, but it's also trusting the wisdom and the intelligence of our bodies that goes beyond our minds. And you might find, by going down that road, you might find that instead of getting stuck, as we so often do, in this duality between the body and the mind, in a duality between that which is physical, that which is spiritual, we can actually start to integrate. And our work can be holding it all together. And maybe then, you also might find that what we call our body's intelligence is actually just an extension of nature's intelligence. And that nature's intelligence is actually just an extension of the intelligence and wisdom of the cosmos. And at this point, with language like this, we are entering into a place where words start to fail, and some of the few words that we have are the divine, creator, source, or God, right? And so at this point, maybe as much as we love science, maybe science doesn't give us all the language we need in this realm. And so maybe we can turn to things like poetry. And as Robin started us off with some Mary Oliver this morning, I thought I would close with an excerpt from Mary Oliver's famous poem, Wild Geese. She says, "You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves." Friends, perhaps the work is not punishing ourselves. Perhaps the work is not earning our way through it all. Perhaps the work is not figuring it out with the conscious mind, but perhaps it is taking a step back and trusting the body, where all we need to do is feel fully without blocking, right? Now, this means taking every emotion that comes in and treating it as though it belongs. Not every emotion that you experience is useful in a given moment, but it all belongs. Let's get practical for a moment. When you face the work, when you face the things that register for you as, got to work through this, got to figure this out, got to do this, got to feel this feeling, got to figure out this situation. This is a hard thing for me. This is one of my areas. Maybe instead of rushing to explain it, instead of rushing to understand it, we just felt it, right? We paused, took some breaths, and we allowed whatever we were feeling to come up and to come through, creating a space of loving, attentive awareness for ourselves, right? This is love, period. It all comes back to love, because so often we talk about love as treating the other and giving the other the space of non-judgmental attention and care, right? And so can we do that for ourselves? Can we create a spaciousness within ourselves and a non-judgmental attention and awareness within ourselves, whatever it is that might be coming up? I'm going to invite us to practice that in this moment. If you would so choose, it's totally up to you, but if you feel comfortable, if you want to practice this, just take a moment, find a really comfortable position. I hope you've been comfortable the whole time, but get really comfortable and take a second. You can close your eyes if you choose. You can just have a soft gaze. And I want us to just feel whatever it is that is coming up for us. Maybe you're still feeling something from a song that was played today, or that lovely meditation and reading. Maybe it's Mother's Day and you're feeling some of those things. Maybe as we had this conversation, there was some feeling around things that haven't been felt for a long, long time, things that have been kept down. And as we just allow that to come up, we create space for it in this moment. And if it's hard, if it feels hard to stay grounded, just follow your breath. So whether it's joy or sadness, anger, disappointment, peace, relaxation, annoyance, fear, laughter, whatever it may be, notice where it is. Notice where it's showing itself in your body. What does it feel like? Where? Maybe if it's appropriate and you feel comfortable, you can place your hand where you are feeling that emotion and that feeling. It's as if you're saying it all belongs. We're just curious. Like a friend or a caregiver, we are tending to that part of ourselves by giving it attention. There's nothing to do, nothing to figure out. It's simply to be with all that you are, to be with the emotional self in its fullness. And when you feel like you have come to a point of resolution, you can open your eyes, but please take your time, because this is a deep process. And when you open your eyes, you can continue to gently hold space for those who are still taking a moment. want to honor you for participating. This is challenging stuff. It can be. That's why this series is called Doing the Work, not doing the fun, doing the easy. It's leaning into the fullness of who we are and how we're showing up in any given moment.